Welcome to the Insight series on organizational well-being. Our question for this week is, what are the ultimate results of an employee wellness program? Number 18. In answering the question, what are the ultimate results of an employee wellness program? And from the framework, the logic framework we've talked about earlier, the specific ultimate results can be broken into two major categories. The first one are economic benefits. And when we take that to its ultimate form, we tend to get return on investment, which is the comparison of direct cost to direct benefit. The five economic variables that we generally want to look at are our health benefit or health plan costs, sick leave absenteeism costs, workers' compensation costs, disability insurance costs, which are short-term and long-term, and presenteeism costs and losses. And that's essentially productivity losses that occur when someone stays at work but has an underlying health problem that we could be dealing with in our wellness program. The second area are what we consider as other benefits, and that's what we also call in the literature value on investment. So we have return on investment and value on investment, and that includes work-life balance improvements, stamina and resilience improvements, interpersonal skill enhancement, positive attitude increase, strength and flexibility increases, company loyalty improvements, morale and recruitment improvements, and retention of employee improvements, and turnover improvements. And recruitment and retention are important in this post-pandemic era because that's one of the things that employers are struggling to improve, and a wellness program, employee wellness program, can in fact improve that. Now, when we look at economic benefits or return on investment, ultimately, we want to be looking at the baseline kind of occurrence and then any historical cost pattern comparisons. So we want to look and see what was it like before in a pre and post comparison, and what was it like before in the pre-period, and then how does the post period after introduction of the program, what has happened to these particular costs. The direct and indirect cost elements can be included as well. We generally want to stay with direct, but there are times when we might want to find what are called indirect cost elements. Those are harder for us to determine, but an example would be something like, what's the value of the time if employees use a wellness program during the workday? What's the value of their salary against the value of their participation in the wellness program? So that would be an example of an indirect cost element or benefit element. In addition, we can also generally look at participant versus non-participant comparisons. So for instance, we could look at the growth rate of these costs among participants and then compare that with non-participants. There's the issue of how large your organization is. The larger your organization, the more likely it is that you experience fully any liability for any costs and the benefit of any reduction in those costs. So that's really an issue of organizational liability, extent of liability for these five different economic variables. Now, when we move down into the other benefit area, the value on investment area, we can use some standard survey questions, and we can use those in a participant versus non-participant comparison. So that's oftentimes a method that we use to do the evaluation of our wellness program's effect on the population and on the organization. We are also using the pre and post comparison issues that we saw in the economic benefits. We're also using that same kind of evaluative approach for the other benefits. We also can use what's called a Likert scale, and that's where we have the opportunity to have a statement, something like, has the employee wellness program or the employee wellness program has improved my productivity. and then give the individual survey respondent an opportunity to say either strongly agree, neutral, disagree, or strongly disagree. And then we analyze the proportion, for instance, that might agree or strongly agree with that statement. That allows us to give pretty specific feedback on these issues to our senior management. So the use of that Likert scale is an important ingredient, an important issue in how we do these specific kinds of programs. And finally, we can also use some HR, human resource data from other data systems to look at the issue of recruitment and retention, particularly if that's a significant issue for the organization that we're with. Now, in summary, the ultimate results of an employee wellness program include both economic issues, return on investment, and non-economic issues, value on investment. There are evaluation methods for measuring all these issues, and they are all critical to how senior management views the employee wellness efforts of the organization. This is the fourth of the four main constructs that make up our results-driven logic framework for employee wellness program. Now let's take a quick look at that overall framework. This is the results-driven logic framework for employee wellness programs. And just to summarize, we looked at the last 4 weeks. We looked at the needs and targets, and they're in various areas of interests and other measures, health risk, and various types of areas. We also can look at what needs and targets we want to address given our goals for our wellness program. We then went into the 6-step planning process that we use in the WellCert program, and that was broken into these 6 steps. From that planning process, we end up with the choice of our either feel-good, traditional, or results-driven wellness model or wellness strategy, and the list of targets and interventions that we end up implementing. Our intermediate results can look at behavior change among our participant population. We can look at whether their measurements of biometrics and health status improvements or screening results are actually showing that the people are healthier that are participating in our wellness program. We also can ask them questions about their perception of their productivity, and we can structure actually any of the other benefit questions that we had talked about just a moment ago. And the ultimate results, again, which we've just covered in more depth, are the economic benefits, ultimately the return on investment, and other benefits, ultimately the value on investment. And what you see on the feedback loop here is essentially why we call this the results-driven logic framework. Because what happens when we look at the ultimate results of our wellness program, we then can go back to the beginning and essentially identify changes that we want to make in either the needs and targets that the program is intending to address. And then that ends up with some new targets and new interventions. We then can look at these intermediate results and have a sense that those are connected to our ultimate results. And by looking at these intermediate results, we are actually helping establish a clearer attribution or causality between our wellness program, its implementation, and our people in fact changing and benefiting from their involvement in the wellness program. And then that relates to our ultimate results. So in summary, this logic framework is what most senior managers want to see, and they want to know about their employee wellness efforts. And it is essential for acquiring strong senior management support and funding for employee wellness efforts. Now, for more information on this topic, put the following search strings into your web browser: evaluation frameworks for employee wellness, measuring the ultimate effects of employee wellness programs, evaluating the results of employee wellness programs. Next week, we will address the question, Wellness Big Ten, what are the main program intervention options for physical activity? For more information, feel free to visit our website at www.chapmaninstitute1word.com.